Welcome into the Air Raid Hour, your go-to podcast for all things Buffalo Bills. Jordan Phillips, he is a Buffalo Bill once again. Mike White may no longer be a Buffalo Bill. Tonight we are combing through the Bills roster and discussing potential 53-man roster and the practice squad. All that and more. But first,
welcome to the Air Raid Hour, a Cover One Network podcast. Here are your hosts, Judge Mathis and Tilt Money.
welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to the Air Raid Hour. My name is Steve Mathis. You can find me on Twitter at the Bills Guys. Joined as always by my co-host Dave Tilton. You can find him on Twitter at Tilt Money. This is the Air Raid Hour presented by Picasso's Pizza and the Cover One Sports Network. And Matt R coming in right away and saying, Judge, are you okay now with the news that Jordan Phillips is now on the practice squad? And that's what we're going to lead things off with this evening. Jordan Phillips is back. The Buffalo Bills signing him to the 90-man roster with the intent on getting him into the building. And then at some point before Wednesday, putting him onto the practice squad. So Jordan Phillips is once again a member of the Buffalo Bills. Personally, you know me, I like to overreact on social media and then bring the more reasonable takes here on the show. But we were texting back and forth. I'm glad it's the practice squad for Jordan Phillips and not the active roster, because that would just be, in my opinion, terrible roster construction. Put him on the practice squad, use him the 2-3 times you need him in the first 6 weeks of the season. Then you get to Larry Ogunjobi. I'm fine with that, especially given the youth and inexperience in the room. But I think you worded it perfectly in the text exchange we were having with me, you, and a group chat we have with Casey Reed and Kyle Knapp. It's just, deja vu. I think the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting the same results. And I think as a Bills fan, time is a flat circle. You see that news and some people get excited. I'm the opposite. I'm like, really? You had all season to address this position group and we're really going back to Jordan Phillips? So it leaves a whole can of worms open to talk about some other things, which you will tonight. But your initial reactions to Jordan Phillips coming back?
Yeah, and I mean, of course, the timeline of events were, a little murky. Ryan Talbot came on and was like, basically, look, I made a mistake. I initially reported he was going to be on the main roster. That was not the case. He's going to be on the practice squad, which I think allowed us to step back from the cliff a little bit. Like, it makes a world of difference that you bring a guy like that back to the practice squad versus what you expect to field as part of your 53-man roster. Because from a practice squad perspective, it makes sense. You have a guy with experience in the system, has had flashes, and you hope you don't really have to use him, but certainly not a player you'd expect to come back and sort of play meaningful snaps on your 53-man roster, especially because we've been down this road before with Jordan Phillips. And at the end of the day, like we said in the group chat, insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. At least this time, it won't be for the main reason of being on the active roster. So now that that's kind of cleared up, I think we can take a little bit of a breath, and I think it's okay. It's okay.
And everyone points to Jordan Phillips. He made that big play in the AFC Championship game, and I agree. Like, as a pass rusher, he's still a really good, he's still a decent player, and he will give you flashes. But for every Jordan Phillips flash, we always seem to forget the 10 non-flashes with Jordan Phillips. And the fact that being a bigger guy, kind of like Deon Walker, what's our concern with Deon Walker? Leverage. And we know Jordan Phillips ain't so great at leverage. So what's he really bringing you in run support? These are sort of the questions you have. And it also opens up a whole bunch of can of worms. Like, what does this mean for the rest of the D tackle room? Obviously, TJ Sanders and Deon Walker, the way they played in the preseason, you can guarantee they're going to get on the field in some way, shape, or form. How many reps they get, who knows? But they will get on the field. So I'm not too worried about those two guys at this moment. But you look past that and you're like, well, Larry Ogunjobi is suspended. he didn't really play a lot, unlike Michael Hoyt, who played a ton. So
Mhm.
what are the Bills thinking about Larry Ogunjobi? Is he disappointed? Instead of putting him on the suspended list, are they just going to outright maybe release a guy like Larry Ogunjobi? What do they think of Daquan Jones? Daquan Jones ran with the ones all summer, but maybe they're lower on Daquan Jones than we think. All these questions will be answered by the time anyone who watches this on demand watches tomorrow. But these are things that you start asking yourself. And then the last but not least, what about last year's third round pick, Dewayne Carter? What did the
Mhm.
Buffalo Bills think about this guy? Is Jordan Phillips on the practice squad, means you can inactive Dewayne Carter every week and keep him as your 50T? Are you going to cut Dewayne Carter loose? Is Brandon Beane fielding phone calls right now? Draft Diamonds just put out a report saying that the Rams are going to outright release their fourth round pick, Pooh Paul, a guy we were really high on, a
Mhm.
guy we know the Buffalo Bills met with in the pre-draft process.
Yep.
Now, if you're Brandon Beane and you're seeing that news on your burner account on X, are you making a call to Les Snead and saying, hey, I'll swap Dwayne Carter for Pooh Paul? Because a guy that they should have drafted, Sean Dolak, beat him out for a spot.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I think that then comes back to the conversation of the Bills linebacker room and, a guy like, Chiarlo, who a lot of people are now, and I apologize, I'm saying his name wrong because I think they said it about Charlo.
Charlo.
They
Mhm.
said it like 3 different ways on the broadcast, because it was the Bucks broadcast, obviously. So, yeah, they didn't know either.
Chris Myers didn't realize that
Yeah.
Travion Howard had hurt himself this week and
Okay.
called Elijah Young Travion Howard at like 6 or 7 times before he realized his error.
Anyway, so yeah, with that, Andreessen struggling a bit maybe in the preseason. What's going to happen with Ulofoshio? Like, that's an interesting thought. I don't think, like, just because it's not likely doesn't mean we should outright dismiss that, like, oh, that could never happen. Like, it could happen. It could happen,
Yeah.
right? Player for player trades are not super common in the NFL, but if it's something that makes sense for both teams, we know Sean McVay would not be scared to make a move. Like, that guy will make any move if he thinks it's going to help his team. So, yeah, that'll be interesting. But I think hitting Dwayne Carter last there is really, really the one. Ogunjobi, there's not a ton of benefit for the Bills to outright cut him because he's going to be suspended for the 6 games anyway. So, like, he's not going to count towards your roster. So, not sure what they would do with him. I would be pretty surprised at this point late in the game if they did cut Daquan Jones. They could have done that anytime during the summer and save that money. So it does come down to Dwayne Carter, and is he going to make this team, third round pick from a year ago, the infamous trade with Kansas City? He's the guy that you got, and everyone last year, like, you were on one side of the fence or the other. You were all like, some people were like, wasn't worth it. Why'd we make that move? Should have had Xavier Worthy. Or the other people, the other faction of people were, hey, we got Dwayne Carter out of this deal that we wouldn't have otherwise had, and he's got some promise. John Helmkamp and others in the draft community were like pretty high on him. And we were pretty high on him too, I would say. Not as high as others, but we were pretty high on him. And it might be unfair to cut the cord on him too soon, right? He got injured last year. It's going to be tough for him to maybe surpass guys like Walker and Sanders who have shown flashes in the preseason. So what is the role for him? That's the question.
It's extremely disappointed because it just seems like there hasn't been a plan since day one. I mean, this is a guy who is a 3-time team captain at Duke. He was the academic Heisman. He's a penetrating 3-tech, and they have him out there trying to do 1-tech stuff and saying sink or swim at a position you're not really all that comfortable with. Then Brandon Beane is literally talking at the post-draft press conference for TJ Sanders and Deion Walker, like, yeah, we don't really know what we're going to do with Dwayne Carter. We'll kind of just see where the chips land, and where everyone else slots in, Dwayne Carter will just have to fill the role that's left over. It's like, yeah, that's not the most encouraging thing to hear about a guy you invested a 3rd-round pick in. I mean, we had the conversation last year. We didn't think it was the deepest draft in the world, and the Buffalo Bills made that decision to trade back. It's like, all right, this is the depth recalibration draft. We're going to go quantity. We're going to see what hits. We're going to see what doesn't. We're going to restock the depth of this roster. Maybe we're not going to get a star out of this draft. But we got Keon and Bishop, who are the ultimate wild cards. Like, this draft is going to, at the end of the day, this draft is going to sink or swim with how they perform this year and how they perform into the future. Those are the 2 big ones. But then Dewayne Carter's now on the outside looking in. Like, he very well might not be on this roster by the time some people are listening to this. He very well might not be, in my opinion. You got Ray Davis, who's the third fiddle behind Ty Johnson and James Cook, and James Cook just got an extension. So he is just going to consistently be a depth / fill-in player. You got Cedric Van Pran Granger, who lost his entire training camp. That's pretty discouraging. I personally think he's a career backup. I don't think he's some kind of successor to Connor McGovern, but I think that's going to still be, I think if he gets healthy, he'll be fine as a depth player. But you're looking at Olafosio might not even make the practice squad at this point. It looks like Charlo has passed him by. It looks like Keontae Jenkins has passed him by. Like, UDFAs are showing more life than him. Yep. That's disappointing because we were both high on him. Javon Solomon's going to have to sink or swim this year at edge 4. Dylan Grable's been injury prone, but he looks like he could be a solid swing, a versatile backup, maybe future left guard. Daquan Hardy got torched up and down the field at nickel, so you know he's not nickel. He got toasted in that Bucks game. The Bills took return responsibilities away from him, so he's simply an undersized boundary corner who's going to be on your practice squad, maybe. And then you got Travis Clayton, who, hey, he just took some snaps of real football for the first time in his life, so that's pretty cool. David Edwards did compliment him, saying he's come a long way since he got here, but this is a draft where the Buffalo Bills are going to need with the quantity they had, you need 4 or 5 hits, or at least like 2 quality starters and 2 or 3 quality backups who are here through the entire length of their 4-year contracts. And we could be saying 2 or 3 of them go bye-bye in the next couple of days here.
Yeah. And I mean, we've talked about this, and I've kind of made this point on this show, and Sean McDermott has, I would say, for the losses the Bills have had in the postseason, that's what we tend to talk about when it comes to Sean McDermott and kind of this defense and him being on the hot seat. He has taken a lot more of the flack than Brandon Beane has over the years for the shortcomings of this team, right? And it's easy to do that because he's the one on the field. He's the one that's down there with the guys making the decisions during these games. But like, yeah, there's got to be some criticism probably thrown Brandon Beane's way as well. And like, I know he's still one of the better GMs in the NFL, and I'm not trying to say like, like
we can respect what they have built, but at the same time, be critical of certain decisions.
Right. And that's all I'm trying to say. It's not a black and white thing here when it comes to the criticism, right? Like there have been tons and tons of good moves that he's made, but there have also been some of these draft picks that look, at least at this point, are looking like they're not going to pan out. And you're not going to hit on all your draft picks, and that's just the reality. So then it comes down to, well, like, what has he been willing to do in free agency? Well, he went out and he got Joey Bosa in free agency this year. He tried with Von Miller a couple years ago, but on the interior, there really hasn't been much in the way of an investment from this front office. And so that's where it's like, you hope that some of these draft picks hit, like a Dewayne Carter, obviously now with TJ Sanders and Walker, but like the interior hasn't really gotten a ton of attention from an investment standpoint in free agency. So yes, I think it's fair to have some criticism, but it's also fair to wonder, like,
at the end of the day, it's been 2 years since you tore it down. You tore it down at the beginning of last offseason, and cognitive dissonance comes in, and you're staring down the barrel of Dane Jackson starting week 1, depending on the severity of Trey White's injury. You have Trey White, who would be the week 1 starter if healthy, and Jordan Phillips is returning. So you've had 2 years to replenish some of these position groups, but you're going back to the hits, right? Like, you're going back to the classics. So if you're Brandon Beane, I understand it's a business, and sometimes you got to find things within the margin and stuff like that. But 2 years to restock some of these position groups, and we're going back to guys that we have utilized before. So again, can respect what he's done, but at the same time be critical. And I think the Buffalo Bills maybe could have done some more at some of these position groups, taking some different swings to have a little bit more variety that we could be discussing right now. Your boy Lettuce coming in saying, manifesting Ryan Stonehouse to the Bills with a super chat. Always appreciate you, your boy, and always appreciate the super chat. He says, come on, Judge, bully Beane into it. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I saw that come across the wire today, and I was really, really surprised that Stonehouse got cut again by the Miami Dolphins. So this is now 2 years. This is now 2 years in a row where you have Ryan Stonehouse getting cut, And he was second team all pro his rookie year. So really surprising. I think he took a cheap shot in the Titans game a couple of years ago, and that kind of injured him, and he hasn't really been the same since. But that's interesting. I think the Bills have settled on Brad Robbins, and I think Brad Robbins is good for the next couple of weeks, but should be interesting. A couple of people in the comment section saying, well, you're blaming them for Maxwell Harrison getting hurt. I'm not, but it doesn't look like he was trending towards being a starter week one, number one. And number two, they hella whiffed on Kyer Elam, right? So that's another thing where I'm saying, like, you had a chance to restock the cupboard and you missed. It's okay to be critical, right? The cupboard is bare at some of these positions because the Bills didn't address it properly or the Bills whiffed when they tried to address it. So the Bills have to cover up for mistakes by going out and bringing guys back who know the system, who've had success before, but maybe are a little bit longer in the tooth. Again, you can be critical of certain things while still respecting. I don't want Brandon Beane fired. Like, I don't want Sean McDermott fired. You can be critical of certain things, but at the same time, be like, yeah, maybe we could have done more here, or maybe we could have done more there. We are going to go through the roster position by position. I'm going to share with Dave my final 53-man roster projection. Dave's going to react to it, and we're going to walk our way through this Buffalo Bills 53-man. But first, a quick word from our sponsor.
What's up, y'all? Khalil Shakir here. When I want Buffalo pizza, it's got to be Picasso's.
Khalil Shakir. Your team, our pizza. Picasso's. This is Buffalo Pizza.
Hungry? Get ready for flavor that's a masterpiece. Picasso's Pizza has been serving up legendary pies since 1980, fresh dough, premium toppings, and that famous cup and char pepperoni. Whether it's game day, your lunch break, or a late night craving, Picasso's hits the spot every time. And you do not need to be in the 716 to order. You can get delivered fresh nationwide. Head on over to picassospizza.net for details. Once again, that is picassospizza.net. All right. So, taking a look through the position groups, let's start at quarterback. And the Buffalo Bills have made their decision at quarterback. You had earlier today, Tom Pelissero saying Mike White was going to be waived. You have Adam Schefter coming in the last hour saying Shane Buechele is getting waived. So the decision is Josh Allen, Mitch Trubisky, 1-2. The question then becomes, who's the practice squad quarterback? Is it going to be Shane Buechele or is it going to be Mike White?
Practice squad quarterback. I think it should be Shane Buechele if you're talking about practice squad quarterback. I think like the Bills have seen probably enough out of Mike White. I think I was kind of hopeful that actually Mike White would win the number 2 job, and he didn't really do anything at all to do that. Mitch Trubisky locked in as the number 2. And look, it's not, again, a reaction necessarily to what Buechele did against the Bucs, but he did play, I thought, well enough there and enough to say that maybe he outplayed Mike White during the preseason. That why not keep him on the practice squad and give him a chance to be your practice squad quarterback? Like, I mean, again, the quarterback position for the Bills, like you're not gonna sit there and probably like really put a lot into developing a guy like Mike White, but having a guy like Shane Buechele, who could be maybe the next Davis, right, on the practice squad, that could be like the next kind of version of what we had there a couple years ago with Davis.
Yeah, it's really interesting, right? Like I look at it and I thought maybe the Buffalo Bills would try to trade Mike White, and I thought maybe there would be a market for him. It doesn't look like there will be. The Raiders just traded for Kenny Pickett. They traded a 5th rounder. That's absolutely nuts. So to me, I thought the Raiders made a lot of sense for a guy like Mike White. I thought Detroit made a lot of sense for Mike White. But again, if you're both of those teams, the Buffalo Bills are probably going to waive him. You're probably just going to wait by the phone to give him a call to try to get him to come to your active roster if you are in fact interested. It appears the Raiders are not, when they should have been. It would have saved them a ton of money. As for Shane Buechele, I made this comment on social media during the game. Like, Shane Buechele is not a bad quarterback. I mean, the Chiefs had interest in him and he was there for a little bit. Then he came here but got hurt in his first preseason. He was a Texas recruit who ended up kind of washing out there and going to SMU. He's got that like lineage. His father was a Major League Baseball player. If he were to sign in the CFL or the UFL, he is literally probably the best quarterback in either of those leagues.
Yeah,
just day one signing. But at the same time, there's not a single NFL general manager who wants him one injury away from starting or playing football. Like, he's in such a weird no man's land. So to me, he's the perfect practice squad quarterback. Whether they go Mike White or Shane Buechele wouldn't surprise me either way. I do think if you're Mike White, you're probably asking yourself, is there a future here for me? There might be a better future somewhere else.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And I think that Mike White has more of a chance to latch on somewhere as a number 2, especially if you're seeing guys like Kenny Pickett latch on as like a number 2 somewhere being traded for. Mike White, the Lions released Hendon Hooker, right? Like there's a chance maybe for him to go to Detroit potentially. Jared Goff.
Their backup is Kyle Allen right now.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's an interesting one. I mean, Jared Goff, again, like he's not a mobile quarterback, so they don't necessarily need to have a mobile guy, and Mike White's not really that mobile. So it's like, again, he could latch on somewhere.
I know he's joking, but Johnny Utah says send Mike White back to the Jets. I think if you're Mike White, you're looking to go to a place where they're gonna game plan with you as the quarterback the same way they game plan for their starter. Like Geno getting a little bit older, not that mobile in Las Vegas. He's a pocket guy. Mike White has to step into an injury. They pretty much run in the same game plan. Same in Detroit, you mentioned with Jared Goff. The New York Jets are going to treat the NFL like it's 1985 this year. They're going to be running the ball down people's throats. They're going to be utilizing the legs of their quarterback. Like, I feel like you're practically going to see wishbone from that team this year. Like, they're going to run the ball and try to play defense. They're trying to create an identity there. I don't think there's a place for a guy like Mike White in the Jets. So if you're Mike White, you're looking for a place with an immobile quarterback, and you're looking to latch on there. So that'll be interesting to see where he ends up. The running back position, I think that's pretty chalk. James Cook, Ty Johnson, Ray Davis, and Reggie Gilliam are my predictions for running back / fullback. I think the Buffalo Bills will hope to get Frank Gore Jr. back on the practice squad, and that means guys like Darrington Evans, Elijah Young are off to the streets. But I did like Elijah Young. If Frank Gore Jr. does get picked up for whatever reason, Elijah Young on the practice squad wouldn't affect me too much, but it's rolling it back.
Yeah, rolling it back, 100%. Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that's going to be what it is. Frank Gore did his thing in the preseason, should be back on the practice squad. Again, running backs like we've seen, like Audric Estime, guys like Audric Estime getting cut today. Like, there are a lot of running backs out in the landscape, the pool of players that will be available. So the Bills will have no issue getting Frank Gore Jr. back to the practice squad, I'd imagine.
Then you look at the wide receiver position. You have, to me, I think the Bills are going to actually keep 6 for now. I think they're going to keep Keon Coleman, Josh Palmer, Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel, Elijah Moore, Tyrell Shavers. I think the Buffalo Bills probably are honestly fielding calls for Curtis Samuel right now. Teams like San Francisco, teams like Minnesota, they need a wide receiver. If somebody's willing to give them a decent chunk of change and eat most of, if not all of Curtis Samuel's contract, it might be interesting to the Buffalo Bills. But I also think the Buffalo Bills still have some belief there in Curtis Samuel that if he's healthy, he can legitimately contribute in some way, shape, or form to this offense. But the top 3 are set. I think Tyrell Shavers, you can't cut him at this point. I think that would send a really bad message to the locker room if you cut this guy. So Shavers is safe. I think Samuel and Moore, you want that insurance, but I think only one of them will be active on game day. Tyrell Shavers, Khalil Shakir, Josh Palmer, Keon Coleman, they're guaranteed the jerseys. It's Samuel and Moore who are going to fight week in and week out in practice to get that jersey on game day.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I actually, when I was doing my sort of 53-man here on the side before the show, I had 6 wide receivers, those same 6. I think, Elijah Moore, yardage numbers in this last game, obviously not necessarily a concern that he's playing because they have to play somebody. He showed some twitchiness, I thought, and he's had some good routes that I feel like he's run some good routes here in the preseason, and he's healthy, right? And so compared to Curtis Samuel, you might maybe say he has the leg up right now. Maybe he gets the nod week 1. We'll see how Curtis Samuel's health continues to trend here in the next 10 days. But I do agree, like, with the Bills' situation at receiver, I think it is not a bad idea to have both of those guys at your disposal, given the health history of Samuel and given that you really need to have someone you can count on beyond those top 3.
Yeah, and you might even look at those two, and maybe you don't want to do this so much with Curtis Samuel, but you might look at Elijah Moore and Curtis Samuel and be like, hey, you both have made this team. You're fighting for a jersey. You're going to be spending the week fielding punts. You're going to be spending the week returning kicks, and we're going to see maybe if we can get something out of you from that standpoint. So we can maybe release a Brandon Codrington at some point over the first couple of weeks of the season, etc. But EB says game day jerseys. Do you think Shavers gets one? Yeah, I think he's a gunner on special teams. I think he's going to get a game day jersey. I think he can play probably all 4 phases of special teams. I like Christian Wilkerson for the practice squad. I like KJ Hamler for the practice squad. Maybe even a Steven Gosnell, even though he's hurt. Maybe you can even just IR him and stash him for the year and bring him back next year. I'm ready to cut bait with Laviska Shenault. I think the Buffalo Bills are ready to cut bait with Deion Kane. Unfortunately, even though he's my guy, love me some Deion Kane. So that about rounds out the receiver room. Tight ends, again, pretty chalk. Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, and then Jackson Hawes just fills into that Quentin Morris role. I wouldn't be surprised if both Zach Davidson and Kaleki Latu both made it to the practice squad. I think Zach Davidson has played some games in this league. I think he's been in this system. I think if a guy like Kincaid goes down, they'd want a more pass catchy type of tight end. Plus, Sean McDermott, he loves that position versatility. I'm sure somewhere in the back of his mind, he loves the fact that Zach Davidson can punt a little bit, like as odd as that sounds. And then Kaleki Latu, I think he flashed a little bit in the preseason, made a catch or two here or there. He had a big one in the Tampa game, but he has been pretty active on special teams. So I think a guy like Kaleki Latu, he's got size, 6'7", 250. He looks pretty spry. Maybe he's a guy the Buffalo Bills see some development potential in. So whether it's Latu upsetting Davidson for a practice squad spot or them both making the practice squad, that's my take there for tight end. It gets a little spicy on the practice squad, but not so much on the active roster.
Yeah, I agree. Latu's had flashes but inconsistency during the preseason, some pretty bad drops as well. As well as Davidson, right? He's had some bad drops.
I was ready to write Davidson off until that final preseason game. He really seemed like he brought fire.
Yep.
He showed some position versatility. Like he kind of woke up a little bit. Like he had 2 dormant games, but then kind of he exploded. And I just love his vibes, right? Telling Shiloh he's too short. Like you got a spot on my practice squad if you do that.
Yeah, I think he'll be there. And yeah, this room, it's a good room, right? I think this was one that we talked about for years about being in purgatory, and now it's a solid room. Obviously, Quentin Morris anymore, but Hawes filling in, and it's a really well balanced room too, I would say.
Yep. Onto the offensive line, I actually changed some stuff up here for my original 53-man projection, and I'm going heavy at tackle. I have Deion Dawkins, Spencer Brown, Tillin Grable, Ryan Vandemark, and Chase Lunt all making the roster. I think Vandemark, I had him as a trade candidate, and who knows, the Buffalo Bills will probably still field phone calls. Offensive linemen are getting traded left and right because teams are looking to fill in the back half of their depth chart, and offensive linemen are not a dime a dozen like the running back position. So I think a guy like Vandemark could have some value, but at the end of the day, with Tillin Grable, 2 years in a row injury, now he's got that head injury he's slowly coming back from. I think Vandemark is safe. And then the change I made was adding Chase Lunt, and my reasoning for it is this. On the interior of the offensive line, I went Connor McGovern, Osiris Torrance, David Edwards, Alec Anderson, who can be the backup center on game day. You pup Cedric Van Pran Granger until he's healthy. And you can have either Dan Feeney, Kendrick Green, or both on your practice squad, and you can call them up whenever you feel like you need their ability to snap. So if you feel like you need that third center, like Connor McGovern goes down, Alec Anderson finishes the game, McGovern's going to miss a couple of weeks, you can bring Feeney or you can bring Green up from the practice squad and they can play. So I'd rather not lose a guy like Chase Lunt. I don't want him to get Nick Brokered or Luke Tenuta or Connor McDermott. I don't want him to
Jack Anderson.
I don't want him to get picked off. I know he's got the short arms. I know he struggled a little bit when he flexed into the interior, but I think he's a good player. I think he checks a lot of Cromer boxes. I think he's got a future. I think the Bills want to play with it. I think there's still some Wyatt Teller gun shyedness. So I'm gonna keep Chase Lunt on the active roster here, and those are my 9 with either Feeney or Green almost guaranteed a practice squad spot.
Yeah, I like your idea of putting Van Pran Granger on the pup to start the year because it does kind of free up a roster spot for you, and that's
his conditioning ain't going to be anywhere where it needs to be.
Yeah, and like when I was going through my initial sort of list of guys, I had 55 guys counting him, and then I said, you know what, I can cop out here and put him on the pup and save a spot, and I had those same other guys that you did as well. I've actually been pretty pleasantly surprised with Kendrick Green as well throughout training camp, and
Yeah.
and we liked him in the draft as well, and I think he's a perfect practice squad candidate and sort of that Greg Mance type that you can keep on the practice squad.
I just wonder how the Bills feel though, because you watch that final preseason game and they put Dan Feeney in at center.
True.
And they started Feeney at center and they started Kendrick Green at guard. I only watched the game one time over, but the one thing I do remember is Kendrick Green did get ragdolled for a sack on one play. So it'll be interesting. Maybe Dan Feeney, like for all the good that Kendrick Green did, though, I just wonder if Dan Feeney might have came in and quickly closed that gap on him. He's a guy who's been around and done that in this league as well. So it'll be really interesting. Yeah, you mentioned Greg Manx, like the Will Clapp type, just that type of guy on the practice squad for the Buffalo Bills. Looking at the depth, I think Travis Clayton, he's obviously the International Pathways player. So we'll see him again. Maybe he'll actually really start to play in some games next preseason, more than a couple of series here or there. That would be nice. And then you got Richard Garage, Mike Edwards, Jacob Bayer, some guys to choose from. I think Garage and Edwards are probably safe in terms of another year of development in this team system, but you never know. The Buffalo Bills might be like, you guys have had 2 years here. You haven't cracked the roster. Maybe the Bills look to other teams' waived players to try and fill their practice squad with some other guys that they might have had some grades on in the draft. But that's what it looks like from a depth perspective there. On to edge rusher. I had the Buffalo Bills keeping 5: Rousseau, Bosa, Epinesa, Solomon, Jackson. Obviously, Michael Hoyt is suspended. That's pretty chalk. Parashand, Nelson, Caesar, they're going to get cut. It'll be interesting to see, are the Bills content there? Morgan Fox just got cut in Atlanta. He just got released in Atlanta. Now, one of the Atlanta Falcons content creators that I follow was like, this is not the same guy. This is not the same Morgan Fox that you saw last year, the year before. He just did not look great in the preseason and training camp. Falcons gave him good money and then ate that money to release him. But he's an option, and maybe to bring him onto the practice squad and have sort of as a KC Hill type. You have our guy, Brennan Jackson, just got waived by the Rams today. Maybe if he clears waivers, the Bills can coax him to the practice squad as opposed to going off to the Rams. Not that the Bills had any connection to him in the pre-draft process, just a guy that we liked. So it'll be interesting to see how the fringe and the practice squad plays out for edge rusher, if they keep any, because they're probably going to go 5 deep like I just predicted here at the position.
Yep. Those are the same 5 I have. I think Solomon, again, like there's some, a little bit for him to prove. I think it'll be interesting to see between him and Landon Jackson if either one of them can like flash a bit more. Landon Jackson had some good reps in that blowout game against the Bears, even though the Bills got absolutely torched in that one. He had some decent reps in that game. And Solomon, for all of sort of the scouting report on him being sort of more of the pass rushing type, he's been a bit better against the run than he has been against the pass, which does give you some hope that maybe he can become more of a complete player. But yeah, I mean, those 2 guys are going to certainly have to hold down the fort until Hoyt comes back.
Onto the interior here. Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones, TJ Sanders, Deion Walker, they appear to be safe. Larry Ogunjobi, obviously, is going to start the year suspended. The Bills have already signed Jordan Phillips with the intent on moving him to the practice squad. So the question mark here is Dewayne Carter. I have him making the roster for now. I do not think the Buffalo Bills are going to cut bait on a 3rd-round pick unless they trade him. So I have him on the roster for now with Zion Logue earmarked for the practice squad and Casey Rogers, Marcus Harris, obviously looking for a line of work somewhere else if that comes to fruition. What are your thoughts on the interior defenders?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right about those top 4. The question is Dewayne Carter, right? Do the Bills keep 10 defensive linemen to start the season, right, on the 53 with the 5 edge, and then is Dewayne Carter going to be a 5th? That's, I think, going to be one of the more interesting decisions we see come out of cutdown day, right? So I have him on mine. I have him on my 53, but it wouldn't shock me if something happened between now and tomorrow afternoon where he got moved or something, right? There's enough, I think, depth there on the Bills roster to where they're still going to have some decent guys on the practice squad. Zion Logue, I liked what Marcus Hunt did as well at times in the preseason. So not saying like it's going to feel good to give up on a 3rd-round pick, especially with the whole trade that went down. But For now, I'm putting him there on the roster, and then we'll see what happens.
On to linebacker here. Terrell Bernard, Matt Milano. Those are obviously your stone cold locks. Dorian Williams, stone cold lock. He would be your third linebacker in base. And this is where it gets intriguing. I made another change to the 53-man roster that I posted on social media. I have Shaq Thompson as my fourth linebacker and Joe Andreessen as my fifth linebacker. Joe Andreessen is pretty good on teams. I have Jimmy Charlo as the practice squad guy, and Keontae Jenkins is another practice squad option, plus a guy you can maybe redshirt on IR because of that injury. Then Edefon Ulofoshio, he just seems like he's been surpassed by everyone else. But I think there's a number of routes the Buffalo Bills can go here at linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
If Matt Milano or Terrell Bernard get hurt, I think Shaq Thompson gets the start. I think if they get hurt in the middle of a game, I think it'll be Dorian or Joe Andreessen because I think they'll be active because they play special teams and can play base and all that stuff. But Matt Milano is going to miss a couple of weeks. Terrell Bernard is going to miss a couple of weeks. I think Shaq Thompson will be named the starter the next week at that position because of the struggles that Williams and Andreessen have in pass coverage. So it's really interesting because Shaq Thompson's not going to give you really anything on special teams. So do you roster Bernard, Milano, Williams, Andreessen, Charlo, have them all active on game day, and you release Shaq Thompson and stash him on your practice squad because you could probably work out a deal with him, right? You can release him. He doesn't go through waivers. Or do you carry 6 linebackers and make Shaq Thompson inactive on game day? Or do you carry 5 and put Charlo on your practice squad? Like, these are the conversations that you start to have. I would almost prefer Dorian, Andreessen, Charlo, 5 linebackers after Bernard and Milano. All 3 can give it to you on special teams. Shaq Thompson as the practice squad stash in case of injury. But Jordan Phillips is now on the practice squad. He's a veteran. You can only have so many. Maybe Dane Jackson, maybe Derek Forrest, Kendrick Green, Dan Feeney, KJ Hamler. There's a ton of veterans. Zach Davidson. There's a ton of veterans the Buffalo Bills might try to stash on the practice squad here. So it gets a little murky whether you can actually do that with Shaq Thompson if the numbers don't line up elsewhere.
Yeah, and the Bills are where they are in this journey are in an interesting situation, right? Because they have to balance sort of having that fail safe that they can call upon versus still continuing to develop the young players. So at what positions do you feel like you need to do that more? They've done a decent job in developing Andreessen. Dorian Williams has come on. Like, Ulofoshio hasn't come on, right? Charlo seems to have surpassed him. Shaq Thompson was on the street, so it's not like, there's probably going to be a ton of teams banging down the door to try to get him, and he may come back to the practice squad as a veteran. I would say this. I don't think you're going to have any issues getting Charlo to the practice squad if you really want to have Shaq Thompson on your active roster as just like a guy that you can have in case something happens during the middle of a game. Like, that wouldn't be the end of the world for me. I'm pretty agnostic to what they would want to do here, but I do think that it is going to be telling what they do with Ulofoshio, right? Do they still give him that one of those last spots after just a year, right? And so you start to look at, again, some of the picks from a year ago, Ulofoshio, Dewayne Carter, like, what's going to then happen with these guys? So you start counting up the numbers and you're like, well, we're keeping 9 offensive linemen. We're keeping 6 wide receivers. We probably are only going to be able to keep 5 linebackers unless they take away from the defensive backfield somewhere, which is what I would do at this point with the people that you have, expecting that you're going to get Max Hairston back, right, pretty soon. Spoiler alert, I have Hairston going on IR for my prediction. But yeah, Ulofoshio to me is the interesting one.
Johnny Utah says, is it possible we need 6 linebackers because there's going to be more returns? The Bills have kept 6 linebackers in the past, but they've always had one on it as a game day inactive. So that's the whole Thompson thing. It's like, well, just cut Thompson, put him on the practice squad. You have Andreessen, Williams, and Charlo for special teams on game day. If a Bernard or Milano ever do get hurt, you bring Shaq Thompson up. You'll get 2-3 games out of him with your call-ups, and you go about your business. You insert him into the starting lineup. So that'll be interesting. A couple of people have mentioned that Pooh Paul is getting released by the Rams. Draft Diamond's reporting that. Obviously, that's not official. right? So if you're Brandon Beane and you're using your burner on Twitter and you see that, again, I think we can find a happy medium here. I'm seeing reports of maybe Jacoby Myers to New England for Kyle Duggar in a player-for-player swap. Why not a Dewayne Carter for a Pupal swap? Let's make everybody happy here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's salvage what we can from Dewayne Carter if indeed the Buffalo Bills are just going to make him inactive every week and try to play him at one tech. So it'll be really interesting to see what becomes of the depth linebacker, but that's one of the positions with a lot of question marks here.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of positions with a lot of question marks, you have the cornerback position. This is question marks for a different reason. That's injury. Christian Benford, obviously stone cold lock. If not for the injury, Trey White would be the stone cold lock at CB2. Taron Johnson as your nickel, stone cold lock. I think Dorian Strong is going to make the team. I don't think the Bills are going to cut bait or risk him to the waiver wire. Cam Lewis and his position versatility, nickel safety, I think he makes it. Jamarcus Ingram, his special teams, I think he makes it. You mentioned IR Maxwell. I agree. I think Maxwell gets IR'd. This, to me, would put Dane Jackson, Daquan Hardy on the practice squad. If the Trey White injury is more serious, though, I could see them cutting Jamarcus Ingram and keeping Dane Jackson on the active roster. And if the Trey White injury is serious, I could see the Buffalo Bills giving Rasul Douglas a call, maybe putting him as a veteran on the practice squad to ramp him up in case he is needed, break glass in case of emergency. But at this position group, injuries, especially specifically to the CB2 position, is the issue and the great unknown at this point.
Yeah, injuries are the storyline here. So unfortunate with Trey. Still don't exactly know.
Sean McDermott told Jay Skursky, the Buffalo News, he was having an MRI and they were awaiting the results of the MRI.
Yeah.
So when we will get any word from them on what that MRI showed, I have no idea. But according to Sean McDermott, they had no knowledge of what the MRI showed, at least none that they were willing to share Saturday postgame.
Yeah, of course. I mean, look, I've been very hard on Dane Jackson, and I think rightfully so. I would keep Jamarcus Ingram over him if I had to. I mean, I know neither are great options, but I'm keeping Jamarcus Ingram over him if I have to. And yeah, it's and Dorian Strong may get thrust into some playing time here before.
If the choice is Dane Jackson or Dorian Strong, give me Dorian Strong.
Yeah, I'm saying to start, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
give me the wild card week one. Give me the wild card.
Yeah, so give him some reps, right? Give him some reps early, and then maybe hopefully it's not the worst news for Trey White. Maybe he misses some time, and then you come back to a situation weeks down the road where Hairston's back and Trey White's back, and then all of a sudden you have Dorian Strong, who's gotten some valuable reps early in the season. I don't know. Read
the tea leaves. Read the tea leaves for me here. On Saturday, Dane Jackson played in the third quarter and didn't really leave the field until he got hurt. But his injury was not all that serious. I believe it was a stinger, and he'll be fine. It was Strong and it was Ingram that were platooning on the other side, rotating every other series. So is that because Strong and Ingram are fighting for the last spot that they were platooning? Or are those the two guys who are more secure and Dane Jackson was being risked to injury and playing longer because he was the one on the bubble?
I think in the last game, the guys that in theory are playing the most at the end are the guys that most at risk of not making the team. That's how I read the tea leaves. So to me, that's how I would read it.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how it all plays out. And again, this is all barring the Trey White news. And a couple of people talking about how bad Rasul Douglas was last year in the comments. Trust me, I'm with you. I am with you. I don't want anything to do with Rasul Douglas, but I think I'm just predicting that if something was seriously wrong with Trey White, that Rasul Douglas would probably be one of the people to get a call. Or maybe we're wrong, and maybe the Bills we're better off with what we got than we do giving Rasul Douglas a call. So maybe we are reading too much into the familiarity, but hey, with all the other moves they make,
they love familiarity. They love familiarity.
It's an easy tea leaf to read there. The safety position, Taylor Rapp, Cole Bishop, DeMar Hamlin, Jordan Hancock is who I got with Derek Forrest as a veteran practice squad guy, but Derek Forrest played late into the game. It would not surprise me if they just let Forrest go completely and were on the prowl for a guy getting cut or waived to try to coax them to the practice squad. I wouldn't say Lewis Cine before anyone puts Lewis Cine in the comment section, because Lewis Cine, I think in the Bills' eyes, is a linebacker. So if you want to say bring him out of the practice squad again as a linebacker, sure, but I don't think he would be as a safety. But if the Buffalo Bills were looking to add a veteran guy to the practice squad, or they're looking at the waiver wire for a young, promising guy, safety might be one of the positions where they look to bring in a new guy as opposed to a Derek Forrest. There was a question in the comment section regarding Cole Bishop, which I'm going to get to. But Dave, your thoughts on this room and maybe moving on completely from Derek Forrest, even not inviting him back to the practice squad.
Yeah. Did you? Sorry, I might have missed it. Did you mention Cam Lewis with the corners?
I did. I mentioned
okay,
him with the corner.
Okay,
So to me, he makes the team. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay, so good there. And then yes, I would agree. I mean, Derek Forrest certainly had higher hopes for him. I feel like I got sort of fool me once, shame on fool me twice, shame on me with the Mike Edwards thing last year, and now kind of the Derek Forrest situation this year. I really had higher hopes for him. I thought he could maybe beat out a DeMar Hamlin or a Cam, I guess Cam Lewis in the corner, but beat out a DeMar Hamlin. And it doesn't look like that's the case. I am encouraged, as small as it is, with the, I would say, notable, not material, but notable progression from Cole Bishop, I would say, in this last game. Thought he played better. He's healthy, which is good. And I think, and as a good comment right here comes in, do you think Bishop showed enough against the Bucs to lower stress level? Yeah, it lowered my stress level, but my stress level is still pretty high at this position. And honestly, now with the injuries to the cornerbacks that we just mentioned, my stress level is pretty high with the secondary overall. But it does lower it slightly with what I saw from Bishop, and Rapp should be back. I am, if Bishop starts panning out and Rapp doesn't do one of his friendly fire situations again where he injures someone from his own team, if those two guys can stay healthy and gel together over the course of the first several games, I think by middle towards the end of the season, they could be a pretty decent tandem. And then obviously you have the upside guy with Jordan Hancock sort of on the bench, and then old reliable, right, with DeMar Hamlin. So yeah, I mean, Forrest, don't know if he's going to be a practice squad kind of guy or not, but it wouldn't be a bad idea, I think.
So you looking at the positives from Cole Bishop in that preseason game, he was moving fast, so he looked healthy. That's number one. And number two, he didn't look like he was thinking too much. He looked like he was naturally reacting. He was naturally playing. He was playing fast. He was playing focused. He didn't look like he was second guessing or hesitating in any way, shape, or form. That was encouraging. I don't have any issues with Cole Bishop towards the line of scrimmage. And I have not, since the day he was drafted, had any issues with Cole Bishop near the line of scrimmage. I think he's going to be a great line of scrimmage player. The issue with Cole Bishop is going to be playing the post, playing center field, that kind of stuff, dropping into coverage. What kind of Cole Bishop are you going to get there? Does he develop and make his game better there? Is he going to be a true split safety, or is he going to be a guy that you wants to live at the line of scrimmage? Because you already have one guy that you probably prefer would live at the line of scrimmage and Taylor Rapp as opposed to dropping to the secondary, even though he can do both, right? So to me, Cole Bishop looked healthy. He looked ready, right? In terms of like prepared, and he looked like he was moving fast because he was feeling confident. But it's the dropping back into coverage stuff that we're not going to see till the regular season. The disguise coverages the Bills like to run, the scheme and all that stuff. We're not going to get a feel for that until the season starts. So it's a good start for Cole Bishop. He's got a long way to go. I wouldn't say I feel safe and out of the woods just yet. Got to see him go out there and do it in the regular season. Got to see him do it at both levels, not just at the line of scrimmage. Yeah,
and that's the thing, right? And like this was the whole conversation with him in the pre-draft process we had a couple years ago when I was very high on him. I liked Bullard more, but he was very high on my list. And again, around the line of scrimmage, getting after the quarterback, even blitzing, like he was very, very strong. Then the question was like, what could he do in the back end? And he tested amazingly well athletically at the combine. And we all know about his RAS score and all that. And that kind of made you think like, oh, maybe this guy could have some athletic range in the back end. And I think he could once the game slows down from a bit. And he just hasn't had the reps yet for it to really slow down for him enough. But the athleticism is there for a guy like that. So if the game does slow down for him, if he can kind of get the mental side along with the reps down, the athleticism is there for Cole Bishop to make a meaningful impact on the back end and not just at the line of scrimmage.
On to special teams. Tyler Bass is going to be your kicker. Not feeling great about that right now from a health perspective with him missing that field goal and Sean McDermott saying like, yeah, not letting him kick anything longer than 46 yards. Not the greatest feeling in the world, knowing maybe you don't have a 100% kicker going into week 1. Brad Robbins, he had a great preseason. Kudos to him. He's got the job. Reed Ferguson, he's got the job. And then I have Brandon Codrington making the team as my 53rd guy. I don't know what to say at this point if you're the Buffalo Bills. Khalil Shakir's got the ankle injury, so you're not going to have him returning punts. Keon Coleman, he did some in training camp, but you're probably not going to have him returning punts.
You can't do that. You can't do that.
Laviska Shenault has had one career punt return his entire life, and that was like 3 weeks ago in the preseason. And if you keep Laviska Shenault, you're keeping 7 wide receivers, most likely, unless you want to cut Shavers or cut Moore or trade Samuel. So maybe if Samuel gets traded, Laviska Shenault makes it here, but then you're kind of wincing every time he returns a punt because he's never really done it before. Did Shenault look good on kick returns? I'll give him that. I'll give like everyone on social media probably knows that like I'm pretty salty with Laviska Shenault. I don't want him on my football team. He got absolutely embarrassed on every special teams rep that wasn't a kick return. He was whiffing on every single angle, on every single tackle. He was terrible on special teams outside of returning kicks where he showed a little bit of pop. But this guy doesn't return punts. He doesn't go down and take good angles and tackle people. He's not a wide receiver. You're literally going to roster a guy just to return kicks? No, spare me that. So to me, you got to keep Codrington at this point. I think it's fluid over the course of the season. Maybe you keep Codrington on the practice squad. You got to risk him to waivers, but you keep him on the practice squad and you call him up for the first 2-3 weeks of the season while you try to figure it out. I don't know, but this is a position where I like Codrington. I feel good with Codrington, but I know the Buffalo Bills do not want a guy who has so little flexibility to be on this roster because they like flexibility. So it'll be interesting to see where we go. He can't play DB because Codrington sucks. Like
they hate it, but he was the return man last year and they traded for him. So he's gonna make he should be the return man again this year. Like no
one has done anything to take it from him.
Correct.
Like, you could argue Shenault has been a good kick returner, but like, dude, he gives you nothing else. Nothing. You're in the same boat. Like
and Hardy's been injured, and so it's like
at this point move Codrington to receiver.
Yeah, I mean.
Move to running back. I don't care. Like, why is he still playing corner?
It's still. I'd rather have a guy that can do both and just absolutely eat a roster spot because he can do both than have a guy who can only do one and then you have to figure out the other somewhere else.
Mark Sullivan says, let Gore return. I don't know if Frank Gore Jr. has ever returned a punt. It's punting, right? Like, you'd like your return specialist to do both. Codrington's gotten rocked on some kick returns because he's like a slender dude. And I know, and now I'm starting to see. Last year I didn't get it. Last year I did not get it. But this year I get it, where it's more like the 220-pound running back, run really fast while being really heavy, lower the shoulder. Like that's the kind of dude you want to. I see it this year with the new rules. I didn't see it so much last year. I didn't understand it last year, but I do get it this year. So I do get why they would probably prefer Laviska Shenault return kicks, but I don't know if you can justify a roster spot for that. All right, now that we finished off the 53-man roster, we got a super chat here from Johnny Utah. And if anyone else has got any questions, hit us up in the comments section. We got a couple minutes here. We can take questions. We can preview Hard Knocks, all that good stuff. And Johnny Utah comes in and says, if Dane Jackson has to start for a few games, can't we just play more Tampa 2 and be fine? He's basically been de facto CB2 3 of the past 4 years. I don't think it's too bad as long as Mad Max starts by week 5. I don't disagree with you, Johnny. I don't. Like, I think Dane Jackson will be fine. The Bills ran more cover 2 last year than they've ever run in their years under Sean McDermott. And it's because they had so many injuries and they had no faith in the pass rush. And they were kind of just feeling it. I think with guys like Rasul Douglas struggling and guys like DeMar Hamlin, who aren't the most athletic guys in the world back there. The Bills ran so much cover 2 last year. And we saw the 3rd and longs. And we saw the issues they had getting off the field. And we saw the bend but don't breaks. So, yeah, could they survive the first half of the season with it? I'm sure they could, but I'd rather see this defense thrive rather than later. So to me, give me the upside of Dorian Strong. Give me the wild card of Dorian Strong. Give me the mystery box of Dorian Strong as opposed to Dane Jackson. But I'm not losing sleep if Dane Jackson CB2 week 1.
Yeah, and I think
as much as I hammer against it.
Yeah, and I think as it kind of, also depends on how much added stress do you want to put on the rest of the secondary at the safety position as well, right? With stylistically what you want to do with this defense early in the season, right? Obviously, playing more of a classic Tampa 2 is going to put less stress on a guy like Cole Bishop, right? Less responsibility on a guy like Cole Bishop early in the season. Whereas if you were maybe a little bit further along, you trusted your CB2 a bit more, you could do some more interesting things as well with the safety position as a result of that too. And the Bills and McDermott really want to disguise more. They want to be flexible with what they do with the safeties. So it's like, yes, is it a safe way to play defense? Yes, but is it going to help your third downs and getting off the field? I don't know that it does, right? So unfortunately, they're going to be in this position one way or another because of all the injuries there. So they're going to have to figure out what they want to do. And I agree with what Johnny's saying with that last comment where he says, if the pass rush is good, we'll be fine. And I think that's the other part of this, right? If Bosa and Groot and Epinesa and even maybe some of the other guys like Jackson,
The interior guys. That's where you want the pressure to come from.
That's true. That's a good point. If those guys across the entire defensive line can come out of the gate strong, then that would also mask some of the deficiencies in the secondary.
Got a couple of other questions here. Connor S. coming in saying, I feel like Keon's absence on Hard Knocks is noticeable. Based off his rookie interviews, he should be a huge star, but we haven't seen anything from him. Yeah, it's kind of interesting, especially given his personality as well. I think this might be the week where you see a little bit from Keon on Hard Knocks because it's kind of that buffer week. Like you're not going to see roster cut down. Maybe we do see roster cut down. Tomorrow's not the last episode. Tomorrow's the penultimate episode.
Yep, there's one more.
So I feel like you see the roster cut downs the week after.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there's 5 episodes, right?
Yeah, but I mean they do have time to film some of the roster cuts, but I don't know if they'll have time to edit it. So maybe this kind of filler episode, maybe this is the episode where we see a little bit on Keon Coleman. Maybe they pick out a defensive player like a Christian Benford who was on the cover with his name shown. Maybe they highlight him a little bit more. Maybe the Terrell Bernard. I wouldn't be surprised if we get a couple more features this week, and Keon Coleman is one of them on Hard Knocks. I know they're probably going to hit home on the Bills maybe having a tough week of practice, like a hard week of practice because of their no-show in Chicago. Mm-hmm. They'll definitely highlight. There's a number of – that was actually not an awful preseason game to watch. That was pleasantly enjoyable. The offense moved the ball.
Oh, The defense
made some plays. Oh, maybe it's the fact that I had no expectations whatsoever, but I thoroughly enjoyed that football game. Maybe Shane Buechele gets a little feature.
I was going to say Buechele's probably going to get some time.
So that'll be interesting. We got another one from Mark Sullivan saying Cam Lewis. Where's his mention? I haven't heard his name in a while. He's going to be your backup nickel, your number 3 or number 4 safety. I think that's the interesting conversation. If Bishop or Rapp goes down, is Hamlin the guy or is Cam Lewis the guy? Once Jordan Hancock gets healthy, is DeMar Hamlin the weekly inactive? Because honestly, I don't want DeMar Hamlin playing special teams. He's not exactly a special teams maven. He's not the kind of guy who's going to go out there and run full speed and lay the boom on people. He's more of a finesse player. Cam Lewis has the chops, and maybe Jordan Hancock, what we've seen from him, maybe he's got the special teams chops as well. So maybe there comes a point this season where the versatility and the special teams ability of Cam Lewis and Jordan Hancock make DeMar Hamlin the weekly inactive again, like he was 2 years ago.
Yeah, and a lot of fans, I'm sure, would be hoping for that after sort of what they've seen. And it's a lot. I think a lot of fans, actually, to their credit, I will give Bills Mafia a lot of credit here, is a lot of fans are able to separate the person from the football player when it comes to DeMar Hamlin and recognize he's a pretty subpar. Is he an average depth safety? I would say he's average at best. He might even be below average. But yeah, I think people want to see Jordan Hancock when he comes back because of some of the flashes he's made, and Cam Lewis is a bit more versatile as well. So yeah, I mean, I think I'd be down for that. Someone here has a good question. Yep, there it is.
Yeah.
What are your impressions? That was the one I was looking at. What are your impressions of TJ Sanders and Deion Walker? I think Deion Walker, especially in this Tampa game, showed me something, especially against the run, especially with his ability to kind of get through the line of scrimmage quickly. And I know it was against, backups and what have you, but Eric's film cut-ups on Deion Walker are certainly encouraging on what we're seeing from him. And TJ Sanders, I think, to me, that second wave of guys seems a bit more solidified now after what I've seen from those two guys in the preseason, with Daquan and Ed being the first wave. You've got TJ and Dion kind of as your second wave. And then you still have a guy like Ogunjobi who may come back and give you something, TBD with Dewayne Carter. And then at times you can maybe even see, Hoyt line up when he comes back all over the interior. So I guess to answer your question, I am impressed with where those guys are. My expectations, I don't think were too high on them. So I think they're really doing a good job from my perspective and where they are with their development and some of the reps they're putting on tape through the preseason. And I think the Bills will need to continue to count on them to be impactful as the season goes on. And they'll have chances early in the season as well. So they will get some playing time early in the season to kind of prove themselves.
Yeah, we spoke on this a little bit last week. I don't really have any concerns with Deion Walker and TJ Sanders and even Jordan Phillips, now that Jordan Phillips has entered the chat, as interior penetrators and pass rushers. I think the Buffalo Bills will be better this year, especially with Sanders and Walker marrying the pass rush to the secondary and getting off the field more on third and longs. I think the pass rush will be better in that regard. The concern is going to be, and statistically, they were good against the run last year, but they gave up a lot of toxic differential runs, a lot of big explosive runs. TJ Sanders, Deion Walker, how are you going to be better in the middle of this defense to help us prevent those big runs? Like that's, I think, to me, that's the issue with them is what's it going to look like in the run game? How are these guys going to operate in the run game? Because we had this conversation, right? Like you chose not to draft Alfred Collins. You chose not to draft CJ West. You chose not to move on from Daquan Jones and maybe look for a younger, more sprier one tech like a DJ Jones. Like these are decisions you made, Brandon Beane, right? You're looking for these penetrators. You're looking for these guys who people would label finger quotes a 3 tech. So now you're going to have to live with it. Now, can the Buffalo Bills do enough and put Band-Aids where they need to put Band-Aids and maximize them where they excel the most and get the most out of them there? So it's okay that they have to patchwork some other things with Band-Aids. 100%. I think they can. A lot of that depends on health. But to me, the issue is going to be explosive runs. I think they'll be better brushing the passer, especially from the interior.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on the and again, Ogunjobi, same type of thing, right? I think like where are you getting the run support from? And it's like it's not exactly like you have thumpers behind them, right? Unless Dorian Williams is on the field, but Milano and Bernard aren't exactly thumpers, right? When it comes to defending the run, they're great sideline to sideline defenders when it comes to that, but how stout are the Bills going to be up the middle of that defense? Maybe Cole Bishop adds a little element there of run defense to help out as well from the safety position. But it's got to start with that interior, that defensive line. They have to be better against the run. And I do think that TJ Sanders has the potential to be a pretty good run defender. If he continues to progress and gets the reps, but that's still a question mark, right, for the interior. So we'll see.
All right, Dave, any final thoughts before we head out of here this evening?
No, look, I mean, I just want to say again, like the criticisms of draft picks and things of that nature, like are not to take away from the good picks that have been made by this front office over the years, but we try to keep a pretty even and leveled approach here with what we do on the show. So I wouldn't say anyone would call us homers. I wouldn't say anyone would call us haters either. I think we try to be fair.
So they would call us homers after the first 15 minutes.
No, definitely not. And so that we're just trying to be fair, right? And then we're trying to look at this as objectively as we can using all the information that we have. And I also, on that note, do appreciate everyone chiming in the comments as well, because everyone cares. We all care. The season's almost here. And just thanks to everyone again for tuning in and for the continued well wishes for me. We're hoping to turn a corner here pretty soon, I'll say. So let's keep that going.
Awesome to hear. And we got EB coming in saying we never talk QB1. I am a little worried that he didn't take any snaps this preseason, but neither did Lamar, so I guess it cancels it out a little bit.
Well, Lamar's kind of been banged up though too.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are looking to support us here at the Air Raid Hour, there are 3 things you can do. Number 1, you can smash that like button. Really helps us with the algorithm. That's the easiest thing you can do. Number 2, the way we want to spread this thing around is through word of mouth. So if you enjoy the show, you think somebody else would enjoy this show, click that little share button, copy the link, text it, post it on social media. We'd really appreciate that. And then finally, if you're really, really, really looking to go the extra mile to help us, you can wait until this video is done being live. You can go back into the on-demand replay and you can leave another comment. It can be a criticism. It can be another talking point. It can be a go Bills. It can be a cheers, whatever you want. It can be your grocery list for all I care, right? Like you leave that comment there. We go back over the course of the week. We respond to it. That really helps us drive the algorithm as well. So we try not to have like clickbait titles. We try not to sit here and like have these like long rants and raves to get attention. We don't try to Stephen A. Smith it or anything like that. So the number one way to drive the YouTube algorithm, because YouTube is looking for the catchy title, YouTube is looking for the hothead screaming his head off, is through these 3 things. So we would really appreciate that from you guys. And Dave, until next time, go Bills.
Go Bills.
Thank you for watching tonight's episode of the Air Raid Hour. Make sure to hit that like button on the way out. If you are catching the show on demand, leave a reply in the comment section and we will respond over the course of the week. You can always listen to every episode next day on all major podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify, by searching Air Raid Buffalo. Thank you for your continued support, and as always, go Bills!